welcome back to the Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldai, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. Can you believe it is March already? It's insane. But the exciting thing is we just had a tremendous month, February, dedicated to dual-use technologies, and we're now transitioning to industry diversity. I'm so excited to have with us today Lori DeMatteis from Iris Automation. Iris is so generously sponsoring this month and has been very active in diversity, equity, and inclusion, accessibility efforts, both kind of in their own office and beyond. We're going to talk a bunch about that today. So everybody, just a reminder, this is a live stream. So please say hi to Lori, tell us where you're from, drop your questions in the chat, give us positive encouragement. We love all of it. So Lori, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dawn. So pleased to be here and grateful to be able to talk to everybody this morning. This is an important topic for the industry. So
it really is. And let's talk a little bit about you first. So you have a super long title, the Global Vice President, right, of Sales, Marketing, and Customer Satisfaction, Customer Relations, what is it?
Customer success. Everything customer. We just put it in one big bucket and say everything to do with the customer.
I love it. Okay, very, very good. I should know these things, and I'm actually deviating from the script already, so pardon me. But Lori, you were a keynote speaker at the Women in Drones, Women to Watch honoree program at CES 2022 this year in Las Vegas. And I just remember when I saw you up there and I heard your story, I thought to myself, I need to get her on the podcast for Industry Diversity Month. And so I'm really grateful that you're here. We're going to talk much more about that a little bit later into the podcast, but let's start with you because you've got, I joke, but you have a huge title. It's an important one. And it's been a journey, right, to get where you are now working at Iris. Can you give us a little bit about your background?
Certainly. Experience in both hardware, software, and the networking layer. And so what I enjoy doing is building companies and building teams and building revenue to support what our end user customers are doing and their clients. So that's always been my focus. I've had the honor of being able to build 3 companies from 0 to 150 million in very rapid order. One of them went public. So it's just been an exciting career. And through all that, I've been able to live internationally and travel internationally. So my focus has always been on the global basis.
Lori, I'm sitting here smiling because, you're so understated. You're like, oh, I kind of started, 3 companies from 0 to millions of dollars. I mean, seriously, that's unbelievable. Let's talk a little bit about your international travel because that is something you actually mentioned during your talk. And by the way, everybody, that particular keynote, the entire Women to Watch awards program is actually on the P3 Tech Instagram. I did an Instagram live of that, so you can absolutely go back and check that out. But let's talk about your international travel because I remember you mentioned you had gone to China several years ago and you were surprised by what you saw around the boardroom. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. When I first went to China, and that was in the early 2000s, I was working with distributors to represent our product lines. And there was 40% women in the room, and these were mid-level women. And there was diversity in the room. There was discussions. And I think there's a lot of facts that talk today about the fact that if you have diversity, you can increase your revenues. You have a chance of more than over 1.7 times innovation and 2.3 return on cash flow. So I think it's very important to think in those terms. And so I saw that and I came back into our teams and our company and we started hiring more women. We started hiring more diversity. And that's something I've always been focused on as I move into companies. How are they treating that aspect? And I think that's a key lacking, honestly, in this industry. 93% are male. We don't have the diversity numbers, but I'd like to contrast that to what we've been able to do as a team. And I really attribute that to our founders, Don. From even Bessemer Ventures, who is our lead partner in Iris Automation, their focus has been on diversity, and their focus has been having both men and women represented. And so I really have to give a shout out for that. What I'm going
So
back.
I'm gonna interrupt you for a second, Lori,
Yeah.
because you just said a lot, and I want to peel it back and kind of start
Sure.
with your China example and the fact that, just contextually, what year was this approximately when you walked into the boardroom and saw about 40% women, represented there?
That was 2001.
So pretty significant. And just again, a foil to that contrast when, in your own organization, you said it inspired you to come back and have some deeper conversations, maybe change some policies, maybe do things a little bit differently. What were, comparatively speaking, what were you seeing in that particular organization? It wasn't Iris, I know that, back in 2001, but what were you comparatively seeing in your own organization and other similar tech type companies at the time?
What was interesting is in our own organization at that time, we were led by a woman CEO, and we had probably a 50% gender balance across the organization. A lot of women in high executive level positions, and the endorsement and the encouragement. Now, that was a stark contrast to the partners and the people that were sitting around the table when we were working together, 100% men. But it was interesting that at that point in time, our success, and I really do feel that the success and where we drove as a company was very much focused on the women aspect. Or I wouldn't say women aspect, but on the diversity aspect.
Yeah, look, you gave some statistics. I mean, this is not political correctness. This is not
Right.
nice to. I mean, we're talking about corporate viability here, and the facts bear this out. So totally agree. Let's fast forward for a second. I'm going to peel a couple other things you talked about in a second, but let's fast forward because you later visited China, I feel like in the last couple years. And
Correct.
What did you see now, fast forwarding in time to more recent times? What were you seeing around that board?
And that boardroom moved to 70%. So
wow.
Yeah, and these are executive women, these are mid-level women in positions, and everybody is working together on these teams. There isn't an inclusion where, okay, there's women and it is an engineering team that is all made up of one type of gender. It is, you see this completely in the room. You see a focus on being able to team and being able to share thoughts and energy. It's a very different dynamic if you have a chance to experience that compared to experiences that I've had in Japan and other Asian countries. It's just a whole different dynamic. And so when you look at that and you take that back to technology and you say, where is that innovation being driven right now? How do we continue? And how do we make sure we're competitive? I really think you have to look at some of the dynamics in China. One company I worked for out of China had a very interesting structure where they rotated at the executive level every year. The person that was the head would either be from marketing, then it would move to finance, and it would move to engineering, very much consensus driven, but there was a sharing. So you had that complete wheel of thought from all the different segments and an appreciation of how all the different organizational structures and units within a company and divisions can work together for the greater whole. Very interesting.
Wow. Lori, look, you hit the nail on the head because what we're talking about here is leadership. I mean, because you're talking about kind of rotating the leadership position.
Exactly.
But ultimately, the culture, the diverse group that may or may not be part of a particular organization always starts at the top. That's an interesting model. I've never seen that other than the closest thing, right? My military career. And I'll tell you, because look, we rotate it out every couple of years and there'll always be a new person at the top. And that has its pluses and minuses,
Right.
because
Exactly.
what you don't want is, kind of hard right, hard left, doesn't matter which direction you're going, changes in policies because a new person, as long as there's some kind of at least core continuity going on. I think that is critical to any organization, unless they really need to be completely, right, restructured. But Laura, you mentioned some of these statistics, and I do want to mention also something that I've been involved in recently, and I know Iris Automation and you personally are big sponsors of and members of Women in Drones. Partnering with Women in Drones, the Diversity Development Network of Canada, Marlene Dials there. We did put out that industry diversity survey last year.
Correct.
And, that summary, you can find it on the Women in Drones website. The full report's coming soon. Actually, it's in my inbox. I need to review it. But, it reinforced this idea that, we always kind of wonder how diverse is the UAS and AAM industry. And it didn't look like it was. And at least the 100,000 plus responses we got reinforced that. But the positive news is people are hungry for change. And, Iris is an exemplar of this. So let's talk a little bit. You mentioned, John, your CEO, and, how you have instilled a culture of diversity in Iris Automation that helps the innovation. We're going to talk about both of these things.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that. How do you foster that culture?
Well, I think that we have a unique way. Every month, we do an all-hands meeting to share what's going on in the company, which I think is very important no matter what size of company you are. But what we have done is take that to the next level, which is not just have the executive team report out on metrics, but we're having across the organization, people step up and speak about different things that they're doing. And then we take that into the focus of the customer. So we maintain the customer-centric approach, but we show how that parallels to every individual person in the organization. So we give everybody a chance to speak, to think, to talk. And I think that is a real encouragement because that in turn gets people excited about not only working for Iris, but bringing on their own friends and people that they know. So our numbers are astounding for the Valley. We have over 20% female. We have a demographic that is to be proud of, where we have a cross section, everything from Asian, Black, European, Hispanic, Latin. It's across our organization. So that I think is one of the key measures of our success as well.
Okay, look, you just did something there that you didn't realize you did, but you just hit on this term inclusion. This
Correct.
idea of, like, again, to me, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, it's leadership, period, dot. And the fact that, John and your leadership team is holding meetings with people and letting them speak about what they're passionate about, what they're working on, that is, I would call that a best practice. And frankly, that is something I used to do when I was a boss in the military. We had training and I didn't do the training. I let my folks pick the topics and let them train, each other on relevant things. And they were just to see how excited they were. And everybody, it just lights everybody up. Speaking of inclusion, I have to include some of the commentary we're getting here in the chat. We've got an active chat this morning. So our normal producer, Mike Pahel, is in Colombia. So, hey, Mike, he says hello from there. He's monitoring this. CJ Smith, formerly of Interdrone, now with Adorama, is actually our Oz behind the scenes today. So wanted to shout out to CJ and thank him. We also have Gillis Pixel Folly says hello. Jason Christ from Class G is saying hello to both of us. Brandon Dean Morris says good morning. Barry Alexander. And we also have Charles He with the UAV Drone Light Show. So lots of folks saying hi this morning. That's absolutely phenomenal. Thanks everybody out there. Really appreciate it. Let's talk about how this kind of diverse culture, this emphasis on diversity and inclusion in Iris has sparked innovation. I mean, you all have been on fire the last year and a half. I know, Lori, you recently came on board. I'm going to attribute some of that to you. But no, I mean,
Everybody,
y'all
it's
been
all of us.
no, y'all been doing so much. I mean, I know your Cassia 360 detect and avoid. By the way, everybody, Iris John DeMatteis was on this podcast back in November. Iris sponsored that month of innovation and talked a lot about the Cassia technology for detect and avoid and how that's evolved. We can hit on that real quick, but you've had some really cool partnerships lately. So why don't you walk us through some of the kind of more recent updates since we talked to John.
Okay, perfect. So we have crossed the aviation community with our product set, and I think that is a huge step for a small company such as ours. And we are getting a lot of demand. So whether it's on our onboard systems where we started in our heritage, which is probably what everybody knows is our onboard autonomous systems, and our small form factor of a single camera all the way to the 5-camera system, we have gone into general aviation. We've had successful trials now on different kinds of aircraft, and we've been working with different manufacturers on that. We're going to be at the Helicopter Expo next week here in Dallas, so we're very excited to be able to participate, and we have a very special, literally a very special demo that we've just closed on. So come see us in the Becker booth. And I think it will be a game changer for the helicopter industry. I think as everybody realizes, there's a lot of crashes, a lot of challenges when flying a helicopter, and we're hoping we can solve that. And then we come back into the large drone market and the AAM market, being able to support that with our products, and and the weight and the swap. And then we've entered the ground-based market. And that is literally at the request of our customers saying, wait a minute, our drones need to be smaller. We need to get more cost effective. We need to be able to do more things. Sensor payloads at the edge is getting more delicate, but also larger, a lot of different ConOps and missions involved. And so by taking the DAA sensor off of the plane and putting it on the ground, it frees up for the work and the mission involved in that on that drone. So that's what we've done, and we're having a lot of great success with that as well. And we'll have some announcements here in a couple of weeks too around that product.
Oh,
that's very exciting. It's fun.
No, it is really exciting. And, Lori, we talked a lot, about a number of these things on Clubhouse. So whether you're on Clubhouse or not, everybody, you can go back and listen to that restream. I did post that on LinkedIn. I'll repost it again, probably in the next day or so with this video as well for on-demand viewing for your friends and colleagues if they miss this live stream. But really great stuff across the board. And we talked about this idea that a lot, helicopters, some planes even, they don't have, ASD,
ADSB, yes.
ADSB, okay, dyslexia here, ADSB. And so having your system on board to help detect and avoid, even when they can see and avoid, technically speaking, it's really hard to see a little drone when you're out there and you're a helicopter pilot. We've seen recent crashes, as you mentioned. One that got a lot of traction, in the media lately. So hugely important, everything you're doing. Let's pivot for a second. I want to go back to CES, Women in Drones, and talk a little bit more about that because I loved your speech, and I just remember that you talked about your very first day on the job ever. And it's a powerful story that I would love for you to share here as well.
Okay. Well, it wasn't quite the first day, but it was the first month. And so fresh graduate out of college and attending meetings, accelerated management program within AT&T at that time. And so we were doing some special sessions within those groups and those teams. And I'll never forget that I was pulled aside right after lunch, and I was wearing my normal mid-height pump, no more than about an inch and a half. And the gentleman took me aside who had been assigned to mentor me on this program. And he said, Lori, I want you to know that you will never wear another pump to this program ever again, or anytime you meet with me, because you are too tall and it's intimidating when you stand up in the room and do your presentations. So please remember that as your part of your dress.
Wow.
And so I was sitting there going, now this was right as lunch was closing and we were having to go back in the room. And I have to say that I was not the first person back in the room that day. I was sitting there on that table, looking out the window going, what am I doing here? I'm looking at my shoes. I remember looking at my suit going, but I'm professional. So I just have kept that in mind as I've moved through. I think it is about presence, but I don't think it's about height. It's about the quality and your discussions.
Well, hey, no, it actually is about height. So let's talk about that because, we discussed this a little bit in Clubhouse, but it's worth repeating because not everybody heard that discussion. Look, I'm a trained attorney. I've been an advocate in the courtroom for years, and I've done received a lot of advocacy training. And one of the things they tell you is, statistically speaking, there's actually enhanced credibility that attaches to tall people. It's just people, when surveyed, find taller people more credible. And, think about like imposing historical figures in the United States anyway, like Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, right? Really tall dudes, right? But just having that presence, and the fact that you were told you're not allowed to be tall, it's almost like you're not allowed to be an imposing, credible, assertive figure, Lori. And to me, that's, I thank you for sharing that story. I've got a lot of my own, Gail, everybody here, with some of the things that I dealt with, as a female in the Air Force. But the stories are long, and I've got a number of them certainly around when I was pregnant, and some of the comments that were made. I'll just going to share one. This is a true story, Lori, no joke. So part of the military, you have an annual performance report, and you get you're supposed to get a feedback. Well, I was pregnant, and I remember this boss, he was a colonel, and I was only major at the time. I was an instructor, I'll leave it at that. And the cadets, kind of rated you. And it was like, well, your ratings aren't as good vis-a-vis your peers, but you know what? That's not surprising because, all the other pregnant women here got pretty much downgraded the semester they were pregnant by the students. And then also told me, don't wear rollers in my hair at Walmart. And and which, by the way, can you see, I have naturally curly hair. Like, I don't wear rollers, first of all. And I think that's 1950s, by the way. And it was just like, also, the jacket, we had this blue jacket, and the pregnancy shirt, of course, designed probably not by women,
Yes.
looked like a giant tent, right? And so if you wore your blue jacket that had a waistband, your blue jacket, your shirt would stick out. And it was just like, you're not allowed to wear that blue jacket because I hate when the shirts stick out like that. I mean, these are just a handful of comments. I've got many more. I'm not going to get into it, but it's just like, seriously. And so just having that perspective, and like you said, Lori, just walking into the workplace and the difference you personally make, because literally you walked in your own shoes a mile, and others will too, and you're going to look out for those people. That makes a difference, and that makes it more welcoming, right, for others. So Iris also sponsored the Women in Drones Entrepreneurship Award. Not only did you give the keynote, but you also handed over that grant check, John did on the stage there after your keynote, to Bronwyn Morgan, Entrepreneur of the Year. Yes. What an amazing woman. I just actually put a little ode to her up yesterday. I'm doing one a day, highlighting amazing women in this industry as part of my personal and company mission to elevate diverse voices in this industry. And I believe we have a couple pictures from that event. So CJ, if you wouldn't mind rolling those, they're pretty cool. So we'll stand by while he rolls those. All right. There we go. All right. So what you saw there was Lori up on the stage giving her keynote, some of the beautiful awards that were given out, and then also the slideshow that showed Iris Automation's Entrepreneurship Award. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. So we have a comment here about the your day in the office story, Lori. Let's see. A LinkedIn user says, "What really gets me is that your boss or that person, that quote unquote mentor, essentially said you can't be intimidating. Why not? You should be. You don't need to choose to be intimidating. You're doing great work, Lori. You're inspiring. Thank you for what you're doing." But but that has an impact, right, on you. Like, you're just fresh out of college. This is a person that you're looking up to guide you in your brand new career, who's telling you not to do something. And I imagine that had a big impact on kind of on your psyche, on your mindset, and how you interacted with people. Because Lori, I heard you just say, I certainly wasn't the first person back in that room when we reconvened. And my guess is you might have even sat in the back. So maybe you took yourself out, right, of the mix because you got kind of knocked down a peg. That's just so frustrating. But thank you, LinkedIn user, whoever you are, for your commentary there. Let's see, I have so many other questions here. When we talk about innovation and what Iris is doing, you're also very deeply into the R&D space. I know you worked in the FAA's Integration Pilot Program, which is now the Beyond program, with the Reno Fire Department as one. I think there's more. I don't know what you're at liberty to speak about, but can you walk us a little bit through, some of that innovation and the teams you're working with there?
Absolutely. We're working across on the university level. We're working across on the public sector level. And really not only trying to sponsor within the communities and the teams so that we can educate, but also driving the flexibility to be able to test and work with our product itself. So it's been very exciting journey, and compliments to the U.S. government for setting up these programs with everybody so that we can come together as groups and as teams and test and create that synergy. Canada is very much progressive, but that's one of the things that Canada has been lacking. If you look at it from an industry perspective, there hasn't been a area where everybody could go and work together to see how all the technology will intersect.
But on that note, Lori, you all have created the Canadian Pathfinder program.
Correct.
To help guide companies through the process. So can you tell us just maybe a little bit about that?
Sure. So because of that gap, we started to try to bring people together ourselves so that people would have a safe place to test, trial, work through processes. And it's taken off from there. I mean, there's been new forms put together and sort of grouped, if you will, offshoots of that. But the whole reason that we created that was an ability for somebody to go and be able to try to work through a process that's defined to get to the ultimate state, which is that waiver, and be in front of the Transport Canada to talk about what they want to do. So from a standpoint of outcomes, you've got a very progressive team and work going on in Canada. I got a call yesterday on a very interesting con-op that I don't think anybody would have ever thought of. I'm like, wow. So it's, to be able to protect lakes, right? So environmental. more
Very
so
cool.
than just inspection, but this is literally to protect a lake from anybody, a bird that could coming down into it at a
Oh,
certain
wow.
time. Yeah. So it's really fun, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's so many weird use cases out there, Lori. I just saw something about a drone that drops mites it's just like, what? Like,
Yeah.
like bugs. Like, okay, interesting. That's an environmental thing. But you're in Canada, you're working with Volatus Aerospace, right?
We are working with Volatus Aerospace and that's very fun because we get to be able to synergize between the teams and uplift both companies, right? John has been an amazing CEO from a standpoint of rather than being it's ours and that a lot of CEOs will form a fence and say this is us and this is who we are and not let anybody into the fence. John has taken exactly the opposite approach, which is opening up and up leveling the industry for everybody, because what raises up helps the world, helps the end users, and also helps one another. So that's the approach. So that's what's so fun is you get to synergize, you get to team, and we get to see what's happening from an OEM perspective, because maybe folks aren't aware, Iris offers a solution to original equipment manufacturers. We cannot go and support without having those manufacturers there. So it's very important for us to be able to support that community. So it's great to have that exchange because in turn, it helps our product and solution become better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you're knocking it out of the park here in the US. You just recently got that beyond visual line of sight waiver, pretty significant one. Can you tell us about?
Very,
And
very
that was in the
exciting.
context of Reno, correct?
It is in the context of Reno. It's with the city of Reno. It's with the fire department. It's the first waiver on a 360 system for our 360 system. And it is without visual observers. It is without other forms of safety mitigation. And in fact, we're flying that waiver right now as I'm speaking. The teams are out. Iris Automation, we do extensive testing. So literally 7 days a week, as long as weather is acceptable, we are out working with one or more of our systems. And today we're doing that waiver out in the middle of the desert. And so we're very, very excited. We're going to have some reporters out there as well this morning because this is a huge step for the industry.
Well, thanks for spending some time with us while that big thing is going on out there in the desert. Speaking of which, I believe we have a little clip that we can roll also right now, CJ, from this Reno Fire Department collaboration that you all have going on. So if we could roll that, please. And I don't know if you're able to kind of walk us through what's happening here, what they're doing.
So we are actually taking we have a number of different autonomous systems that we use in our testing. So you're seeing right now our head of flight operations, Mark Janung, he's talking about, and this is actually posted as well on the internet, talking about how we're setting up for a maneuver, how we're doing that identification, how we're doing the flying. We actually fly against general aviation aircraft. So we're not testing drone on drone. We're testing our drones against general aviation, which is exactly what the FAA is seeking to prevent, any kind of a situation against a general aviation aircraft. And so we're out there. You can see our camera system. You can see us getting ready. And you can see, I think this is going to be coming into one of our ultimate, after we've done the detection, we actually have an automated if you would like to call it evasive maneuver, where we will do a hold and get out of the way if something is untoward. If in fact the pilot in command has not responded, then we will actually do that final maneuver to ensure that everything stays as safe as possible. So that's you're seeing is a day in testing.
Yeah, and this is Chief Dave Cochran there. Exactly. I had the absolute honor and privilege of interviewing him for an article I wrote about the river search and rescue use case that you're also developing, not just in the desert, over the river, swift water rescue scenarios near an airport there in Reno, how critical that is going to be and what a game changer that will be when that gets perfected. And you all are a big part of that. So brought a smile to my face. I've never met Chief, but It was so fun talking to him and learning from him about the challenges of swiftwater rescues and why drones will really, really make a difference in that particular use case for public safety.
Exactly. And this is where I think it's where we have got to unlock the industry, because it's exactly the things that Reno needs. It actually compromises the safety of the firefighters trying to go in. And you think about these long rivers, you get a phone call, and where do you enter? Where could that person float it down to? Being able to send off, and that was one of the things at the end of that video we were showing, is being able to take that, send off, and be able to track where that person might, then you can immediately enter, safely enter, and get the person out, versus having to hike for miles or go up and down trying to scout. So it's just absolutely a synergy that saves lives and also protects the first responders, the people that are out
Yeah.
front day in
And,
day
and
out
just,
doing their
you know,
job.
from a time and resource standpoint, like you said, having the drone kind of scout out where things, you know, where this person
Exactly.
is. And that means from an ops center standpoint, rookie mistake, everybody. I actually did not hang up my phone. So from an ops center standpoint, you can determine, you know, what resources you need to send instead of sending the normal 7 trucks, as I think is what he said. You can decide, well, no, we only need 2 and we need these exact 2 at this exact location. I mean, that is significant.
It's huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Especially if it's in the winter when it's cold. That river.
Well, and time is of the essence when you're in the water
Exactly.
and it is cold, especially in
Exactly.
swift water. So, you just talked about kind of development of the industry, and so let's pivot a second. But on that topic, talk a little bit about STEM education, this need for diversity in it. You also, during your speech, gave a couple of, I will call them frightening statistics.
Yes, they are. They honestly are.
Yeah. So can you talk to us a little bit about what we're seeing, not just in industry, but in education from a diversity standpoint in STEM?
Yes. One thing I'd like to say that before we start this is that, you know, you mentioned on these programs with the universities. And one of the things that we're very proud of at Iris, and I encourage this audience to take in and think about for their own companies, is working with interns. So we're blessed to be right by the University of Reno. And so we offer internships, field days, working with the students to be able to do robotics, understand what AI and machine learning is. In many cases, we've offered students after they graduate jobs, but it is a chance to support the local community, but also benefit us as a company, because once again, diversity of thought comes from all different ages and all different spectrums. So it's a very exciting partnership. And that goes with the rest of the universities that we're partnered with as well. We have a number of them that we work with day in, day out. And
Yeah,
I think
before
that
you get to those stats, I want to jump on what you just said because I'm a huge proponent of this. You know, this kind of idea of bringing in interns. I did it all the time when I was on active duty as the head lawyer of a legal office for the Air Force. You know, they had official program, but I brought anybody that came to me and said, not anybody, almost anybody, you know, if their resume was legit, I was just like, yeah, why would I turn away free help? And it was just like you said, the dynamic relationships and the what those folks brought to us. I think the understanding we brought to them as a civilian about the military that they could take back to their law school, or in one case, I had a college student from Brown University that volunteered. It was amazing. And on that note, Carasoft actually just sponsored a scholars program for the Law Tech Connect event I'm doing at AUVSI. So they're going to pay for 9 students and faculty members to attend the event and get the textbook that I offered for free. So again, this idea of let's get students in here, let's get them in early, let's get them meeting industry. That's what this is all about. So I love that you just said that. But let's talk about the STEM disparity. Let's talk, you know, in education, some of the things you learned.
I would love to. So I think it's very scary right now. So the pivotal time for women or girls is 11 to 15. And yet most of them are not being encouraged in school. And so they drop out of their STEM classes. And it's been proven is once they drop out or turn off of STEM at the age of 15, they never go back. And so then if they get turned off, I actually even read some more reports last night, they are moving into jobs that have at least a 50% pay differential. And as everybody knows, once you start with where you start, that foundation of your career makes the difference for your whole lifetime learnings. And so this turnoff actually hurts women as far as their ability to support families, their ability for their long-term survival and their family's survival. And it starts at that pivotal 11 to 15-year-old mark. Now, the other thing that I found was very interesting in the analysis is if you blind grade, so let's just say you take a 6th grade math class and you have them write just numbers on their piece of paper versus their name, there was a grading bias. I think about 20 points, 15 points. I'd have to go back and look, but there's a grading bias. And it is shown because math, while everybody says, wait a minute, how can that be? It's either 1 + 1 is 2, and it's very finite. But it's the theorem where starting at, if you recall your 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you start to go into your theorems. So it's that theorem and how the approach is. It's the difference between girls and boys at that age. And it seems to be that girls are rated tougher than their same peers and the boys in the room.
When their names are on the document, but when their names are hidden,
on the
you're like
document.
getting 20 points or 15 points more
Yep.
per exam. I mean, that's crazy.
Exactly.
And I could see where, I know for myself, I would definitely be turned off from STEM. In fact, I was pretty early, but I somehow I got decent grades in math, but I never really enjoyed it. I get obviously more of the, kind of creative brain writing. That's what I love to do. But I can tell you for sure, if I was getting cruddy grades in math and I had a choice of what class to take next, it would not be a math class. In fact, in college, I remember my freshman year, I was like, oh, I'll just take calculus. It was either calculus or computer science at the time when computers were new. That's how old I am, everybody. And I was like, well, I already took calculus. I'm just going to take that. Well, I got a C+ on my first quiz, and I was out. I'm like, I'm out. I took the computer class, and that helped me type my papers later when I ultimately became a history major, history philosophy double major, and got my master's at the same time, writing a lot of papers. But that initial like, oh, I'm getting C, I'm out. I'm not ruining my GPA right up front, So I get that. And I think just having that awareness as a professor or as a teacher or a parent or an individual, I think is pretty significant to make the changes that we need to make in STEM, in our industry, and all of these things. Lori, we're like down to 1 minute left, which is again insane to me because I can talk to you forever and all day long.
It's so much fun.
It's always so fun talking to you. So let me give you the floor for the last minute here to tell us whatever you want to leave us with about Iris, about diversity, any of it.
Well, I just wanted to encourage everybody in the audience to encourage the girls that are in this pivotal age to make the difference, because one of the things that I think everybody's aware is we have a huge chip shortage. And what we found is in the research is that there's nobody coming up to even work in these jobs. So how do we encourage folks to get in the jobs? We've got to start younger. So even if you can spend a day in a classroom and tell them what you do and maybe make that difference, it will shape us for the many, many years to come and help and maintain the U.S. Competitiveness factor that we so desperately need. I just wanted to leave everybody with that.
No, I totally agree. And I thank you. I thank John. I thank Iris for what you are all doing. I was remiss. I did not mention that the Vertical Flight Society is out there with you, Lori, doing great things with their Diverse of Flight podcast. And I was recently a guest, and they played a pretty good clip of you giving your speech. So if at some point CJ can drop that in the chat and let everybody see that YouTube link for that podcast, We talked quite a bit about diversity in there. And like I said, they played Lori's clip as well. Just real quick as we sign off, we have Barry Alexander here from Aquiline Drones saying exciting things are on the horizon. Lori, good to make your acquaintance and good to connect.
Pleasure, thank you.
Looks like we're having fun doing the podcast. Yes, we always have fun. And so all good here. So anyway, thank you again, Lori. For everybody out there, like I said, I'll post up Lori's Clubhouse, this link. This entire month is dedicated to diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility. Tomorrow, in fact, on Clubhouse, join us 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have Diana Robinson and Alina George from the FAA, leading the FAA's diversity efforts. And they will be on the podcast next week as well. So really awesome. Got a great lineup for the whole month. Thank you again. I probably am forgetting something, but let's just call it good. We're 1 minute over. Out here. Fly safe, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.